my friends, welcome to Shakespeare with Sarah. I'm Sarah and today we are looking at Lady Percy's "Oh my good lord, why are you thus alone?" from Henry IV Part 1. Let's jump in. In this video I'm going to talk about the context for the monologue so you can make your acting choices, and I'm going to break down all the meanings for you. I'm also going to do a reading at the end so you can hear how I would put it all together. So if you want to hear that, you can jump to the end, or otherwise stick around and let's walk through it together. I also wanted to let you know I have put together a monologue prep checklist for you. I have got so much monologue prep stuff coming at you in the next couple of months, so please subscribe if you're kind of getting ready for drama school auditions or you just want to improve your Shakespeare and your acting. But if you would like my checklist, my kind of quick version of the steps to go through when you're working on a monologue, especially a Shakespearean monologue, I have created a little quick document for you, and you can find that at my website, and it is all free, and I hope it will be helpful for you in the meantime while I get all this other stuff ready for you. The link is in the description as well. Oh, I also wanted to mention, if you are looking for Lady Percy's other monologue, which is from Part 2, Henry IV Part 2, I'm going to do another video on that one separately, and I will link that for you when it is ready. Dun, dun. I'm going to start today by talking about some acting stuff. This monologue is actually, I think, a pretty good choice for a beginner if you're fairly new to Shakespeare. The language isn't too hard, and there's kind of just one main sort of theme of the monologue. She's not jumping around talking about lots of different stuff. It's not too dense, it's not too complex, but it's often not done well. But I've noticed when people do this monologue, they often don't do it well. If you look on YouTube, sorry to say this, but I have not found a lot of really good examples of this. And I think the reason for that is because people get kind of scared of the histories. That's one of the reasons people don't do these ones, but also because when it's from a history play, people get like extra ye olde worldy. And I put myself in this bucket too. As soon as we know it's even further, before Shakespeare, it becomes very, oh my lord, la 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 la. We kind of trot along like we're in Bridgerton. Had to drop that in because I feel like everyone's talking about Bridgerton. This is not going to age well, probably, but actually that never really works with Shakespeare. It never really works to be like, doobie 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 doo. Shakespeare's women, on the whole, are not really like that. They are usually pretty, like, powerhouse, or maybe they're a little bit flighty, but I don't know many that are sort of very ladylike. Not a lot of characters, especially ones with monologues, kind of wander out and be really lovely to their husbands. Mostly they're not that great to their husbands. And this is another one of those. So to avoid the kind of hoity-toity lady thing that seems to happen, I recommend firstly that you watch a couple of versions of it. I particularly love the Philida Lloyd version that is on digital theatre. I found it really, just really vital and creative, and that's the kind of thing I like, and it's quite a contemporary spin on it. I don't agree with everything that they did with Lady Percy, so do keep in mind that there are different ways to approach things. But if you really feel like you need to get yourself out of thinking that you're in a giant hoop skirt or something, watch that and see how real and powerful it can be. And that will hopefully open your mind a little bit to some of the possibilities. This is definitely a monologue that can be done in a lot of different ways. I kind of think of it like Amelia in that it's sort of a layered character. It's very interesting, very powerful, and you can bring your own version definitely to this. So think about who you think Lady Percy is. And as always, to do that, we look at the evidence in the text, and as I walk you through all the meanings and the context and everything, you should start to formulate in your mind, I think she is this sort of woman, or this sort of character appeals to me and I think I could play it this way. It is okay to work with what you're good at as well. My big tip for you in getting this monologue ready is to practice the entire scene with a partner. You will learn a lot about the character by looking at the full scene. Of course, you should always read the full play and definitely watch at least one version, multiple if possible. And there are versions out there of this one. But to really get a feel for this character, I highly recommend getting on the floor with someone that you know, ideally an actor that's fairly comfortable with Shakespeare, and play around with this scene. This monologue is all about relationship. And so your job is to create a world. Before you even begin, you need to create a world where you understand what is it like for Lady Percy and Harry, her husband. What is their life like? What is he normally like? What are the kinds of things that they normally do together? How different is that right now? Because obviously things aren't going that well right now. You need to get a sense of the norm and what their relationship is like, so you can kind of break away from that. You will see in this scene, Lady Percy basically, after being kind of, nice and reasonably patient, I suppose, in this monologue, though you can take it different ways for sure, she snaps at him and calls him like a mad-headed ape, I think. And just kind of goes off at him, which is awesome because Harry Percy is known for flying off the handle and being very spontaneous. So it's interesting to see her snap at him. You need to decide, is that like her being way out of character? Is she just kind of going off because she just absolutely had enough? Or actually, does she tend to kind of match him in their kind of vibe and their attitude and their personalities? Are they both kind of hot-sperry? Do they? Are they at loggerheads a lot? And there's a lot of playfulness, I think, in the way they talk to each other. There are parts of this where she is asking if he loves her and he is like, nah. You need to decide, does he genuinely not love her? I personally think he does love her, but he's just kind of doesn't want to open up yet. That's my take on it. And also, how much does she love him? How much has she just had enough? And how much is she really hurt? One thing I really want you to take away here is, it's not about you. This monologue is all about how she wants to impact her husband. She is scared for him, and I'm going to go into that more soon. And she wants to know what's going on. This is not a wife coming out and going, tell me what's going on, sulk, 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 and pouting. That is not happening here. She is genuinely wanting to know what's going on. She's genuinely concerned for her husband. So you need, as always happens with the best acting, to get out of your own way, to make it about him. Work with a partner so you can really try and get them to react in certain ways. You can tell them, I want you to react in this way at this time if you want, and see what happens to you. Someone to play off will really, really help you open it up. If you don't have that, even do it on Zoom if you need to. But if you don't have that, just really use your imagination to think about how he is reacting at each point and let it fuel you. Either it makes you more concerned, or maybe you get angry, or maybe you're more confused, whatever it is, but think about his reactions, because this is all about relationship. It's all about him. So let's look a little bit at the context. It's a history, so there is definitely quite a bit of context. What you need to know about Hotspur. So Lady Percy's husband is called Hotspur. His name really is Harry Percy, and he's called Hotspur because he's always like flying off the handle. So he's kind of hot, and the spur was to do with, going off to war, because he was like, yeah, let's get him. Great, that's his personality. We know that about him. He has kind of started a rebellion, basically, or he's sort of organizing a rebellion against the current king, Henry IV. Henry IV actually deposed the king before, the rightfully anointed, I guess you say, Richard II. So Richard II was, in the long line of kings, supposed to be there, but was, considered to be not the best king. And Henry IV, when he was a bit younger, before this play, was like, you know what, I think we can do better. And came along with his troops and deposed him. This is the short version, obviously. Now, Hotspur feels that he and his family have not really been recognized for all the support that they've given Henry IV over the years. Henry IV is now older, and he has also a son called Harry. they call them Harry. It's like, it's short for Henry. It's not shorter. It's like their nickname. So in this play, you've got these like two Harrys against each other. The young Prince Hal, it's his other name. My God, so many names. Against Hotspur, Harry Percy. And you see that sort of travel all the way through. Prince Hal, who starts off being actually a bit of a rubbish prince. He's hanging out with really dodgy people and he doesn't really want to step into his kingly duties or princely duties, but he does as the play goes on. Whereas Harry Percy is known to be really valiant, and now he's very annoyed and he's wanting to lead a rebellion. In this scene, he's reading a letter, and basically the people that he's asked for help for this rebellion have kind of come back to him and said, "You're not organized. This is not going to work. You haven't got the troops. You haven't got the support. We're not sure about this." And he's like, whatever. I'm going to go off now. And Lady Percy has come out and seen him, and he's like, "How now, Kate? I must leave you within these 2 hours." And she's like, "Thank you." A lot of people talk about this as kind of her describing PTSD. So he's definitely having some very scary kind of night terrors going on in this monologue that she's describing, that he's having kind of flashbacks, he's not sleeping. You, I think, need to decide whether he is kind of thinking about the future because he wants to lead this rebellion and he's thinking about the rebellion that they're going into, or is he actually just kind of lost in the past battles? And potentially it's kind of a mix of both. He's carrying the war around with him. And I think for anybody that's seen that play out, if you've never seen that play out in reality, it's pretty horrible to see the impact of war on people. It's really not nice, and it's very, very scary for someone that cares about them. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you could do some research about what it's like to be the partner of someone with PTSD. But otherwise, you could make the choice that perhaps this is a newer thing. She does mention it being a fortnight that this has been happening. So potentially it's something that's, not necessarily happening all the time, but has been happening lately. Even so, scary stuff, right? And enough to make you seriously concerned for the person that you love. Let's jump now into breaking down all the meanings so you understand what's going on here. So first things first, Lady Percy has come out and seen Hotspur reading this letter to himself, and he's getting all upset. And then as soon as he sees you, Lady Percy, he says, "How now, Kate? I must leave you within these 2 hours," which is great. He's probably not really been back that long, I suspect. And notice here, she doesn't respond to that. She's not like, "Hey, where are you going? And thanks a lot. Thanks for giving me some notice," and all those things. She says, "Oh my good Lord, why are you thus alone?" I kind of imagine, personally, I like the idea, and this is something you could play with in your rehearsal, that perhaps she's actually been watching him for a little while, reading this letter out loud. Like she's come out and been watching him for, 5 minutes or something while he's wandering around, and just kind of, watching him and sort of worrying, freaking out a little bit. Something I really want to point out, this very first line, even though yes, "Oh my good Lord, why are you thus alone?" It's very self-explanatory language. There are a couple of things that are going on here. Firstly, the O. I have seen so many actors just pretty much miss the O, or they make nothing of it. If there is an O in Shakespeare, it is guttural. It connects to breath and emotion. So immediately, you need to know that she's actually in a state, probably fairly strong state of emotion, but I would say she's probably trying to keep that inside. Play with using that O to connect to that emotion. And if it's not feeling right, that means you haven't found the right intention yet. My feeling about this is she's saying, "Why are you thus alone?" But it's more than that. It's, what are you doing out here and what is going on? There is a lot of subtext in this very first line, and playing with the O and those long vowels will help you find that. Don't be afraid of the O, make the most of it. Then she says, "For what offence have I this fortnight been a banished woman from my Harry's bed?" I think this is an interesting one. Again, there's lots going on in this stuff. Firstly, I think you can potentially make the connection of alone versus in my bed. So she's saying, why are you out here without me? Why have you left me alone in bed? I think even though it sort of sounds like for a fortnight she's been banished, like he's been sending her away from bed, I actually think what she means here is actually that he's kind of imposed the banishment by leaving. So he keeps leaving the bed, he's not sleeping, and she's waking up and finding herself alone. You could certainly choose to take it that he's been like waking up and she's ended up leaving the room because he's sleeping so badly and having night terrors, or that he's saying go away and go and sleep in the other room. You make that choice. It's absolutely fine however you want to read that, but paint that picture for yourself. Connect, because it feels different ways, right? You're going to feel differently if someone keeps telling you to go and sleep in the other room versus you keep waking up and they're not there. Next. Tell me, sweet Lord, what is that takes from thee thy stomach, pleasure, and thy golden sleep? Now notice it says ist. That actually should be contracted like that, ist. So don't be tempted to put another syllable in. It's for the rhythm. When there's contractions, contract. And stomach generally means appetite here, pleasure. You could take this as like a sexual connotation, but I actually think she just means like that he's not enjoying anything. And thy golden sleep, obvious one. Why dost thou bend thine eyes upon the earth and start so often when thou sitst alone? Sitst alone. Use your articulation. Notice here there is a lot of articulation. She's really trying to spit out what she means. Notice that she's had to give a number of examples here. He's not responding. Why? Talk to me. I'm noticing all these things. Make it bigger, make it a little bit of a progression, right? And so bend that eyes upon the earth. I like to think about here, this is definitely an occasion where you want to have that sense of how long has this been going on for? Where else is this occurring? So not just in bed, but I think he's been like wandering off, sitting and looking out the window and looking at the ground and just getting lost in thought. Start so often means that when people are talking to him, he's sort of jumping and going, oh, what? And I always think when the word start is used, it feels like jumpy. So bring that quality to it. He can't concentrate. He's off with the pixies. Now this one I think is significant. Why hast thou lost the fresh blood in thy cheeks and given my treasures and my rights of thee to thick-eyed musing and cursed melancholy? She's really talking about here how he is normally so fiery and he's lost that fire. Why? Why has he lost that fire? Is he scared? Is he, sad because he thinks this isn't going to work, but he wants it to work? Is he just thinking really hard? Here where she says, given my treasures and my rights of thee, that's definitely like a little nod to my wifely rights, definitely a sexual connotation there. So that suggests to me a couple of things. Firstly, that they are quite connected. They have a strong relationship. Otherwise, she wouldn't be saying like, why aren't you having sex with me anymore? She's basically like, what's going on? You have no libido, you're not interested in me. They're probably a fairly connected couple. It also could be potentially another action that you play, that she might be trying to be coy with him or initiate some sort of connection by reminding him of their sexual connection because she wants a response from him, and that's just another tactic. Especially if you're someone that likes to do actioning and playing different tactics throughout, which can definitely work with this one. That's something to think about there. Thick-eyed musings basically means like he's kind of glazed over, and cursed melancholy. Don't make it cursed because then you're going to have like 1,000 syllables in that line and it's already a feminine ending. It already has an extra syllable there in melancholy, which means she's got a lot to say and a lot coming out of there. And often with feminine endings, you need a little bit of space afterwards to get back into the rhythm of the next line. This next bit I sort of feel is like a next beat, a next section. She's talking about, first section is all what's going on. This section is, I've been watching you. So I would bring it back down again after that progression. In thy faint slumbers I by thee have watched, and heard thee murmur tales of iron wars, speak terms of manage to thy bounding steed. Now, there's heaps of stuff here and I'm going to run it all together in a minute because it actually lists a bunch of stuff. So basically she's saying, I've been watching you in your sleep and you're talking about the wars. Speak terms of manage is about kind of directing a horse that he's imagining or, you know, dreaming is moving along. Ooh, there's a tree, like there's leaves waving outside my window and I thought it was a person. I got freaked out. Cry, courage, to the field! And thou hast talked of sallies and retires, of trenches, tents, of palisadoes, frontiers, parapets, of basilisks, of cannon, culverin, of prisoners' ransom, and of soldiers slain, and all the currents of a heady fight. So, big list of stuff there. I highly recommend you get yourself a Shakespeare glossary so you can look up all these things, or otherwise Google it. But basically, I'll give you some really basic ones here. So sallies and retires, so basically like some war strategies moving forward and back. Trenches, tents, obvious ones. Palisadoes was like a fence, and I think it's palisadoes, it might be palisadoes, I'm really sure, sorry, I can't remember how to pronounce it. Fences that were around like a trench. Basilisks, cannon, culverin. Basilisks and culverin were different types of cannon, I believe. So they're all different types of cannon that he's referring to here. And that's kind of, and then prisoners' ransom and soldiers slain. So he's like kind of counting the dead and counting the ransoms and all those kind of things. So something that you're going to want to think about here is she familiar with these terms? So when she's saying them, she's like, I know what you're talking about. These are war things, which is possible because she has sort of grown up around that. Or is it more like she knows them so well because he's been listing them in detail, but she actually doesn't know what they mean? She could be like, you've been talking about this and like, what even is that? That's a very different kind of intention to it. So you can choose the, I know what this is, or you've been talking about this thing and I don't know what it is. Now these things are hard to articulate, as I am discovering, because I'm going to cut out a bunch of bloopers where I have just tripped over my tongue. So do a vocal warm-up so you can actually pronounce what this is and also slow down and spit it out. If Shakespeare has put all those articulating sounds in there, it is for a reason. She is trying to communicate. Thy spirit within thee hath been so at war, and thus hath so bestirred thee in thy sleep, that beads of sweat have stood upon thy brow like bubbles in a late disturbed stream. Okay, so that's a big chunk there. So basically, she's talking about that he's getting all the spirit of war has come upon him, and he's sweating and looking pretty scary. Notice late disturbed, that one is pronounced. And in thy face strange motions have appeared, such as we see when men restrain their breath on some great sudden hest. He's getting like really big facial expressions, like he's about to charge, like he's taking a breath. Some great sudden hest is basically like a command, so he could be imagining that he's giving a command, or that he's about to charge because someone else has given the command. He is getting a lot going on in his face, is basically what's going on in that little bit there. Oh, what portents are these? Again, another oh that connects to breath. Portents is usually something like a symbol that kind of signifies things coming forward. So she's saying like, what are you talking about? Basically, what is coming? Some heavy business hath my lord in hand, and I must know it, else he loves me not. Something is going on, and you need to tell me, or you don't even love me. Just be careful here that it doesn't end up coming really sulky, I guess. Else he loves me not. You're not a child. You're not being petulant here. It's either that she's playing a tactic to get him to admit what's going on, or otherwise she's genuinely hurt by it. But keep it simple. Don't get melodramatic here at the end. Okay, let's put together a reading for you. Oh my good Lord, why are you thus alone? For what offence have I this fortnight been a banished woman from my Harry's bed? Tell me, sweet Lord, what is it that takes from thee thy stomach, pleasure, and thy golden sleep? Why dost thou bend thine eyes upon the earth, and start so often when thou sittest alone? Why hast thou lost fresh blood in thy cheeks, and given my treasures and my rights of thee to thick-eyed musing and cursed melancholy? In thy faint slumbers I by thee have watched, and heard thee murmur tales of iron wars, speak terms of manage to thy bounding steed, cry courage to the field, and thou hast talked of sallies and retires, of trenches, tents, of palisadoes, frontiers, parapets, of basilisks, of cannon, culverin, of prisoners' ransom, and of soldiers slain, and all the currents of a heady fight. Thy spirit within thee hath been so at war, and thus hath so bestirred thee in thy sleep, that beads of sweat have stood upon thy brow like bubbles in a late disturbed stream. And in thy face strange motions have appeared, such as we see when men restrain their breath on some great sudden hest. Ah, what portents are these? Some heavy business hath my lord in hand, and I must know it, else he loves me not. Ha ha ha! I got a bit Tom Cruisey by the end there, I think. The intense whisper, which only works on camera, by the way. It doesn't work in the theatre. So I noticed then, I'll just give you my reflections in that reading. Obviously there's no rehearsed reading. The beginning bit is the hardest because you're going to have to drop into emotion very quickly. So give yourself time. It's not easy. Rehearse that dropping in. Think about the prior moment so it's powerful. And then the language will probably carry you away after that, because it certainly carried me away. As always, let me know what monologues you need help with, what are your questions, what are your struggles. Like, subscribe, share. Hope everything's going well for you guys out there in audition land, and I will see you next time.